Hi, my YouTube family. I welcome you all on Let's Talk with a very big heart. In today's lesson, I'm going to be talking about a very interesting trick, and that is called conjunction. When you make your sentences, when you speak in English, there's a very important trick that you should use, and that is called conjunctions. But you know what is it called? What is the meaning of it? It actually means joining two parts of the sentence. This is part A, this is part B. These are those phrases and words that actually join two parts of a sentence. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Let us start now with the first word that we have on the list today. The first one is despite. It means to introduce a fact that is completely opposite with another fact. Completely opposing. For example, there are two information A and information B. Now, I use this word despite to show that these two information are absolutely opposite each other. For example, despite all his faults, everybody likes him. Everybody likes him. Despite is used here to show the difference between the two sentences. He has a lot of faults, and keeping all of that aside, the people still like him because of the kind of personality that he or she has. The next one is, I still enjoyed the week despite the weather. The weather conditions were not as great, but I ended up enjoying the week because, let's say, my cousins were at my home and I had a good time with them. So the weather conditions were bad, but I still had a very good time with my cousins. That is despite. The next word in the list to join two sentences is although and though. Now, you must be wondering, what is the difference between them? Let us first understand the meaning. We use these two words to show two opposite statements. Just like despite, this is also used to show two opposite statements. For example, although he speaks rarely, he makes meaningful words, or he makes meaningful sentences as well, for that matter. One important trick that we need to remember here is whenever we write although, we always use a comma after that. And when it is in the beginning, always use a comma after that. You're writing WhatsApp messages, you're writing emails, or you're writing important message. Whenever you write although in the beginning, use a comma. Another important trick to understand the difference between although and though is, although is used in the beginning of the sentence, though is always used in the end of the sentence. But you can use both of these in the middle of the sentence. Let's have a look at the next sentence, example sentence. She walked home by herself, though she knew that it was dangerous. While the roads were really dangerous, the area wasn't as appropriate, but she still walked home in spite of the fact that she was aware. But she was still aware of the fact that it's going to be dangerous. So I've used though here to connect the two parts of the sentence. This was about although and though. Let's now move to the next word that connects two sentences. The next one is whereas. Whereas means comparison with the other fact. When you want to compare two different information, that is when you use the word whereas. For example, she's funny, whereas he's boring. So we are talking about, let's say, a girlfriend and a boyfriend, a couple. So you're talking about the fact that they're really different by using the word whereas. She's funny, whereas he's boring. Next example is, you treat the matter lightly, whereas I'm very serious. Here is a situation wherein two friends are talking. I am very serious, and you treat the matter quite lightly. And the word that is used to understand the difference between them is whereas. To understand how different these two situations are is whereas. The next one is besides. Now there's a very important word that looks quite similar to this, and that is beside. Beside means something that is to the side of you. For example, what's beside me? What's beside me is the screen. But what is the meaning of besides? It means in addition to or also. For example, whenever you have to say also in your life, just say besides. Quite a nice way of speaking English. For example, Ria speaks four languages besides English. Here it means in addition to. For example, Ria is somebody who has a knowledge of 4 languages, but besides that, in addition to that, she also speaks English. And that is besides. The next example is, I have no other family besides my parents. Very interesting way of using this sentence. I have just my parents, whom I call my family, my father and my brother, my father, my mother, and my 2 sisters. Besides that, I have no other family. And the word that I use here is, I have nobody else in my family besides them. In addition to them, nobody else to be called a family. The next one in the list is unlike, which means something different from another. When you're comparing 2 different things to talk about how they're different to each other, you can use the word unlike. For example, Phil is absolutely unlike his girlfriend. They'll break up soon. Well, that's a very funny statement for that matter, because you're talking about somebody's breakup. You're saying that Phil is absolutely different from his girlfriend. Unlike means absolutely different from his girlfriend. They'll break up soon. Well, we hope that they do not. The next example is, she was a small child, unlike her sister, who was large and had big feet. So we are comparing 2 sisters here. One sister looked quite small, and the other sister looked quite large with big feet. And the word that you're using to understand the difference between them is unlike, how they are different from each other. The next word is provided. Very interesting way of speaking English. Well, provided is quite similar to if. Means if or only if. For example, you're basically talking about a condition in this word. Your friends can play music. So the condition is playing music, provided there's a condition. They disturb nobody. You have to understand that nobody should be disturbed. And the condition that is presented in this is, nobody should be disturbed. And the word for that is provided. Make sure nobody gets disturbed. The next one is, cutting paper for the model was acceptable, provided you didn't litter it in class. Well, you can cut paper in class, but there's a condition. Do not litter around. Do not throw paper here and there. That is the condition. And the word that is used here is provided to suggest it. The next time you have to talk about a condition, please don't say if. Say the word provided to suggest the same idea. The next one in the list is even if. Very interesting way of speaking English. It means used to stress that something will happen no matter what. For example, even if you apologize, she still may not forgive you. Well, the situation is really, really serious. 2 conditions again. You can apologize, but even if you do that, that means in spite of you doing that, she will not forgive you. She is so upset, not forgive you. Another example is, I am going to the party even if it rains. It is a very important party for me, probably because it is the final party that my friend is throwing before he or she moves abroad, and it's very important for me to attend. So even if it rains, I'm going to go. So the condition here is rain, and what you want to do against that is going to the party. And the word that you use in this situation is even if. The next one in the list is even though. Even though is quite similar to even if, or if even for that matter. And it means used to emphasize that something is true although something else has happened. Well, let's better understand it using an example. She stayed with him even though he often mistreated her. Let's say 2 people were in a relationship, he and she. The guy always mistreated the girl, which was a very sad situation. But she still stayed with the person, even though, in spite of that situation, when the guy was mistreating her. So that is even though. The next one in the list is I'm going even though it may rain. Quite similar to the previous example on the previous slide that we had, that even if it rains, I'm going to go to the party. Even if, even though. I'm going even though it may rain. Well, here the only difference between them is here it is a bit more sure that it's going to rain. But even if is not as big a surety. It is just a guess. This was about even though. Let us now move to the next one. Just as so. Well, before you misunderstand it, let me tell you, just so is used in one part of the sentence and so is used in the other part of the sentence. For example, it means to show that there is a connection between two situations. It shows connection basically between the two situations that you're talking about. For example, just as the body needs regular exercise, it's quite, such a phrase is actually used in mythological stories, stories that are about old times, ancient times. Just as is the first part here. Just as the body needs regular exercise, so too an engine needs to be run at regular intervals. It's very important that we are comparing the body with an engine, with a machine. Again, just as the body needs regular exercise, so too an engine needs to be run at regular intervals. So we are comparing two things here, body with a machine. The next one here is, just as the French love their wine, so the English love their beer. We are comparing two communities here, the French community and the English community. We are saying, just as the French, that means in the way the French love their wine, in the same way, in the similar intensity, in the same pattern, the English people. Who are English people? Not the people who speak English, the people who are from Britain, the United Kingdom. The English people like their tea. So we are actually comparing two things using just as and so to show similarity, not differences, but similarity here. The next phrase is no sooner than. It has a very interesting meaning. It means used to show that one thing happens immediately after another thing. This is condition 1, event 1, and this is event 2, as I have mentioned here already. Let's read it. We had no sooner started cooking than, so the first action is, we had no sooner started cooking. The phrase is no sooner. This is the first condition. What happened immediately after that when I started cooking? There was a power cut and we had no electricity. I was in the kitchen, I was cooking food, and no sooner as I started, there was a power cut. So to talk about two different situations, one that happens first and immediately after that something else happens, you can use this phrase no sooner than. I've not seen a lot of people using it, but it is very common in the native world, in people in English world, Western world, where people use it quite normally. So it's important for us to understand it too. The next event is no sooner had they started their walk. So the first event was started walk. And I'm starting the sentence with no sooner. What happened immediately after that? It started to rain. Very important for us to understand. It started to rain immediately after that. I started walking, no sooner, it started to rain. This was all about no sooner. The next one is scarcely then or scarcely when. It is quite similar to no sooner too. For example, it means something happens immediately after something else. Exactly the same meaning. No sooner is equal to scarcely then. For example, scarcely had the sun come up, then the dark clouds began to roll in. So there was sun. The moment the sun came out, immediately after that, the clouds started to pour in. The black clouds immediately started to come. This is scarcely then. Another example of this is, the first condition is, scarcely has she entered the room. So the first thing was, entered the room when the meeting got over. She only entered the room and the meeting just got over. So that means she was late in the meeting. So scarcely has she entered the meeting, the conference room, and the meeting got over. The moment she entered, the second thing that happened was the meeting had gotten over. So that was scarcely then. This was all about all the phrases that we have to talk about connecting the two sentences in English language. If you liked these phrases, please do let us know in the comment section below, and also do let us know what you'd like to study next. Thank you very much for being with me in this lesson. Have a great day and God bless.